The ambition of a soldier leads him to want to voyage to other parts of the world. Despite his ruler's disagreement, the man sails across the sea, only to find the most incredible things on the other side. A man named Ragnar and his brother Rollo are in the middle of an intense battle with an enemy group in the Baltic lands. Together, the brothers are able to defeat the men, killing them in the process. As the two rest, Ragnar has visions of the god, Odin, and his Valkyries. Ragnar is confused at these visions. The two brothers return home after their battle. Back home, Ragnar duels with his son, Bjorn, teaching him his skills. Later at night, Ragnar tells his wife, Lagertha, that he'll be taking his son to Kattegat for his rite of passage. Lagertha tries to convince him to take their son next year, but ultimately fails. As promised, Ragnar takes Bjorn to Kattegat. While on the way, he confides in Bjorn that the Earl sends him to the Baltic lands in the east, but he wants to go to the west. Back at home, Lagertha is visited by two men who aim to assault her as they know her husband is gone. However, Lagertha is able to defend herself by injuring the men before they can hurt her. The next morning, Bjorn is taken to a crowd of people. He meets his uncle, Rollo, who offers him a drink. When Bjorn feels too drunk, Ragnar sends him to lie down. While he's gone, Ragnar tries convincing Rollo to set to the west with him. He tells him that a while ago, a wanderer had told him it was possible to go to the west by the open sea using a sunboard. Using some water and a candle, he shows him how the board is used. Rollo is eventually convinced that going to the west is a good idea. At the council meeting, a man is accused of murdering another man over the dispute of a land. When the people are asked, they all agree that they believe he is the killer. His execution is set for the next day by beheading through his own choice. The execution is carried out the next morning, and Bjorn is traumatized. Later that night, he goes through his rite of passage and receives an arm ring. After the ceremony, before the feast begins, Ragnar asks the Earl where they plan to raid this time. The Earl tells them that they plan on raiding the east and into Russia. However, Ragnar tries to tell the men about the west and how they can achieve more riches. His idea is rejected by Earl, saying that he can't take any risks over a fantasy. Dejected, Ragnar thinks of what to do next. During the feast, Ragnar is called by the Earl to speak privately. He reprimands him for even thinking of sailing to the west. He is threatened not to speak against the Earl, or it will be his last time. Ragnar and Bjorn visit Ragnar's friend Floki, who is a gifted shipwright. Floki has been working on a new kind of longship, which he shows Ragnar. Ragnar asks him when the boat will be ready, and he tells him that he'll get it done soon. Bjorn and Ragnar return back home. Upon his return, Ragnar and Lagertha get frisky, as they've missed each other. Later that night, the family sits together, but when the children go to bed, Rollo asks how the boat is coming along. After reassuring him that it's almost ready, Ragnar is told by Rollo that they must find a crew to help them on this journey. When Rollo and Lagertha are alone, he makes unwelcome advances toward her. She rejects him and walks away. Ragnar sees another vision of Odin standing on the shore. He tells Lagertha and Rollo about his vision and believes that he should move forward with his plan. The next day, the longship is complete, and Ragnar is pleased with how perfect the boat is. They take it for a test run and are pleased to see that the boat is riding smoothly. Floki is surprised at his own talent and celebrates the smooth sailing of the boat. From a distance, one of the Earl's men, Olafur, watches the men as they sail. Ragnar visits a house where he has asked one of his friends, Eric Martain, to recruit a crew for their expedition. During his speech to the men, he tells them of his plan to visit England on the boat and promises to share the riches they gain by their expedition. He eventually convinces the people to join him. Olafur, who was watching the warriors, reports their actions to the Earl. He tells the Earl about the meeting and asks if they should execute the men for disobeying. However, the Earl decides to wait and watch what happens. Meanwhile, Ragnar speaks to his wife about his plan. She asks when they will be leaving, but he refuses to take her along, saying he needs someone to take care of the house and children. Lagertha is upset at this, claiming that this was supposed to be the most exciting voyage of their lives. Regardless of her pleas, he refuses to take her along. Meanwhile, the Earl offers Olafur, who spied for him, to sleep with his wife. When he goes to sleep with her, he is killed by the Earl's guards. The Earl was testing him to see if he could trust him, but is disappointed to find out he cannot. At Ragnar's house, Lagertha reacts violently to the news of not going with Ragnar. She fights Ragnar, who tries to calm her down and is able to overpower her. Their fighting is stopped by Bjorn, who says they could have killed each other. The couple makes up in the morning as Ragnar leaves for his journey. Ragnar notices that the anchor hasn't been delivered and asks Floki. Floki tells him that he threatened the blacksmith making it, that if he went to the Earl, he would kill his daughter. He also notices that one of the men, Knut, hasn't joined them. The men prepare to sail, but before leaving, Rollo forces a slave into pleasing him. Soon after, the men set out to sail. Back at home, Lagertha tells her children the story of Thor, the god of thunder. During their sails, the men encounter a storm in the sea. Working together, they let down the sail and try to control the ship. Floki theorizes that Thor is angry with the group and wants to sink them. Suddenly, he changes his mind and says that Thor is celebrating the creation of the ship and wants to prove it unsinkable. While Floki talks, the rest of the group struggles in maintaining the balance of the ship. On land, the monks see a strange sign, which is a cloud shaped like a dragon. The cloud makes the monks worry, as they believe something terrible is about to happen. One of the monks tries to talk to one of the leaders, Father Cuthbert, about the sightings. However, Father doesn't seem to believe him and asks him to stop speaking about such things. Meanwhile, the men have passed the storm, although they struggled. A man starts believing that this is all a hoax and speaks of how this plan was set by Loki. He becomes so erratic that Ragnar has to kill him. Ragnar orders the men to release the ravens, claiming that if they do not return, there is land, but if they do, there is nothing but sea. Back at home, the guards of the Earl and the Earl himself show up at the house of the blacksmith. The blacksmith initially lies, but when he fears his daughter getting hurt, he tells the truth of forging the anchor for Ragnar. After his confession, the guards kill the blacksmith while his daughter screams in grief in the background. After days of traveling, the group lands on the coast of England, near the monastery of Lindisfarne. The monks are worshipping and singing a song. As the boat reaches the shore, the monks panic, believing that it is the devil and his companions. The warriors break into the monastery. They attack and sack the monastery, killing many priests in the process. They find many riches amongst the monks, and also find a young boy, Athelstan, hiding. Ragnar looks at a book that the boy was hiding and questions why he chose to save the book. Athelstan says that without the word of God, there is no light. Rollo tries killing the boy, but the boy is saved by Ragnar, who thinks he is worth more when alive. After taking everything, the men take their captured slaves back to the boat. The men are pleased with the successful raid that they had. The men head back to Kattegat. Back at home, one of the guards of the Earl confronts Lagertha and Bjorn about where Ragnar is. Lagertha lies that he has only gone fishing. The guard takes the child of another woman, claiming he has to take someone back to make sure Ragnar returns. Returning home, Ragnar taunts Knut about not joining them on their successful expedition. Knut informs Ragnar that the Earl has summoned him to the Great Hall. When Ragnar goes to the Earl, he makes a speech about how his expedition to the west was successful and could benefit the group. However, the Earl confiscates all of the riches acquired, claiming they belong to him as a law. The Earl tells the men that they can all have one thing from the hall, as he is a generous ruler. The men are disappointed at this, as they wanted more of the bounty. Ragnar chooses to keep Athelstan as his slave. Ragnar takes him home, where he introduces him to his family. Later at night, while the priest tries praying, he's distracted by the sounds of Ragnar and Lagertha getting frisky. When the two ask him to join them, the monk refuses, saying he took an oath of celibacy when he became a monk. The priest's reaction confuses Ragnar, as he can't understand him. Athelstan maintains his monk hairstyle, and this confuses the family even further. The Earl gets the treasure buried with the help of his guard and a young boy. When the treasure is buried, the Earl has the boy killed. so he will not tell anyone. Back at Ragnar's house, he speaks to Athelstan and learns more about the kingdom of Northumbria. He takes that information to the Earl, asking him to let him sail west again, to visit the kingdom of Northumbria. The Earl gives permission to Ragnar to sail west, but gives him a condition of taking Knut with him. While returning home, Athelstan refuses to go further, and Ragnar frees him to run away if he wishes. However, scared of being in a new place, he follows him home. When Ragnar tells Lagertha of his plan to sail, he invites her to come with him. She wonders about the children and the farm, and Ragnar says that the priest will take care of them. The next morning, the men set out to sail, joined by Knut and Lagertha. Rollo threatens Knut, asking if he is with them or against them. He confidently claims that he is with them. The men reach the shore of Northumbria, but are greeted by the local sheriff and his armsmen. Ragnar pretends that the group is a traders group, but they are told that to trade, they will need to meet the king Aiel. Ragnar agrees to meet, but his remaining group is suspicious of the sheriff. When they refuse to go, a battle begins in which the Northumbrians are slaughtered. Some are able to escape and go back to report the attack to the king. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.